The bridge of the Imperator Prime hummed with the quiet confidence of an empire that had never known defeat. High Admiral there, clad in ceremonial war armor, stood at the command dais, his golden eyes locked onto the image of a distant blue-green planet suspended in the void, Earth. It was smaller than he expected. "Their last transmission, Admiral," the communications officer reported. The main screen flickered, revealing a simple yet defiant message. "Turn back now, or you will never return." Laughter erupted across the bridge, commanders, officers, tacticians, all amused by the audacity of such a warning. They smirked. They think they can frighten the Eternal Armada with mere words? His voice carried the weight of centuries of conquest. "Send them our reply, their defiance is noted. Their world will kneel within the hour." The officer nodded and transmitted the final rejection of Earth's warning. The fate of the planet was sealed. Beyond the Imperator Prime, thousands of warships hovered in perfect formation, blotting out the stars. From colossal planet-crushing dreadnoughts to sleek, predatory strike corvettes, each vessel carried enough firepower to reduce entire civilizations to rubble. The fleet had subjugated hundreds of worlds before this one. Earth would be no different. "Where are their defenses?" an officer at the sensor station asked, his voice edged with confusion. "There's brow furrowed." "Clarify." "Admiral, we detect no orbital cannons, no planetary shields, no interstellar defense stations." A murmur spread through the command crew. Even the weakest civilizations erected some form of resistance. And yet, Earth was empty. A trap, then, they concluded. Or sheer incompetence. "Either way, we proceed." He turned to the weapons officer. "Prepare planetary bombardment." "Sir." The officer saluted. "Targeting now." From the Imperator Prime, massive energy capacitors flared to life, channeling enough destructive power to level continents. Across the fleet, weapons locked onto major cities, military installations, and strategic points across the planet. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3. The void itself trembled. A blinding ripple surged across the fleet, as though the very fabric of space had shifted. Warships lurched, alarms blaring as systems flickered. "Report." They barked. "Unknown energy wave," the officer's voice faltered. "Admiral, our warp drives are offline." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Then, darkness bloomed in the void. From nowhere, Earth's fleet materialized. They did not arrive through traditional hyperspace lanes. Nor did they emerge from hidden bases. One moment, the humans were absent. The next, they were everywhere. Sleek, black warships, larger than anything the Empire had ever encountered, surrounded the invasion fleet in perfectly synchronized formations. No hull markings. No visible weapon ports. Just silent, looming titans of impossible design. Then, the attack began. The first Zoran destroyer vanished in an instant. No explosion. No energy blast. Just an eerie folding of space, as if the ship had been erased from existence. The second vessel was torn apart by invisible forces, its fragmented remains spiraling into the void. Within seconds, 20 Imperial warships were gone. No enemy fire had been detected. No energy signatures indicated a weapon discharge. It was as if humanity was no longer bound by the same physics the Empire understood. Panic gripped the bridge. "This is impossible," an officer shouted. They clenched his fists. "Open fire." The fleet responded, unleashing a torrent of destruction, energy cannons lighting up the darkness in a desperate bid to strike back. But the human warships moved in ways that defied logic, slipping between beams with surgical precision, as if they knew where the shots would land before they were even fired. Then, a final transmission cut through the chaos. The screen flickered, revealing a human figure. Commander Elias Vass. His face was calm, expression unreadable. But his eyes held something the Empire had never seen before in an enemy. Certainty. High Admiral there, Elias said, his tone neither arrogant nor cruel, just a simple statement of fact. You should have listened. And then, the real war began. A hush settled over the Imperator Prime as Commander Vast disappeared from the view screen. No one spoke. The bridge officers, once confident in their invincible fleet, now stared at their consoles, wide-eyed and disbelieving. The Eternal Armada, the pride of the Zoran Empire, was being unmade before their eyes. High Admiral there forced himself to remain composed. Status, he barked, cutting through the rising panic. A tremor ran through the ship's hull. The sensor officer swallowed hard. Admiral, we've lost 46 warships in the last 2 minutes. Their stomach twisted. How? We don't know. That was the worst answer of all. Humanity had turned the battlefield into a slaughter. The Empire's warships were built for overwhelming firepower, massive cannons capable of tearing apart planetary shields. But their weapons were useless when their enemy refused to be hit. Human vessels moved like shadows, weaving between fire with impossible precision. The Imperial fleet adjusted their targeting algorithms, widened their blast radii. Nothing worked. Then, the Excalibur-class dreadnoughts arrived. 2 monolithic ships, darker than the void itself, emerged from the center of the human fleet. There were no energy surges. No hyperspace distortions. They simply appeared, as if they had always been there. The Zoran Empire had come to conquer Earth. Instead, they had awakened something far worse. They had been waiting in another reality. They did not fire lasers, missiles, or plasma cannons. Instead, thin, glowing threads of blue energy lanced outward, not toward ships, but at the very fabric of space itself. And suddenly, Zoran ships stopped moving. The horror of it froze Valzur's blood. An entire section of his fleet, dozens of battlecruisers, corvettes, and destroyers, hung in place as if the laws of physics had simply abandoned them. Why aren't they moving? The tactical officer's hands shook over his console. Admiral, they can't, the officer's voice cracked. The humans, they've caged space around them. Their ships are trapped in a localized stasis field. Time inside those ships isn't moving. The officer's breath hitched. He had never heard of any civilization wielding such power. Then, the Excalibur-class dreadnoughts finished their work. The threads of energy contracted, and the ships within simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. The bridge was silent for the first time in Valzur's career. He had no orders to give. Panic erupted on the front lines. On the Zoran warships, chaos reigned. This is a trick. They're using cloaking technology, one officer screamed. Another barked over the comms, regroup. Regroup now. His transmission cut out as his ship vanished into non-existence. Survivors tried to retreat, breaking formation, abandoning their fleet cohesion. The humans did not pursue. Instead, the voice of Commander Elias Voss returned, his transmission played directly through every ship's comm systems. You were warned. The Empire had sent an armada. The humans had sent a lesson. And now, the real execution is beginning. The counter-strike. Valzur gritted his teeth. Fine. Let them have their illusions. I will burn their planet to ash myself. Admiral. He slammed his fist onto the console. Fire the planet crackers now. From the remaining Empire fleet, 3 colossal siege ships positioned themselves above Earth. These were the apex weapons of the Empire, each carrying a warhead designed to reduce an entire planet to radioactive dust. The ships charged, gathering energy. They had destroyed entire worlds. They had never failed. This time, however, Earth spoke back. The planet pulsed, not with light, but with something deeper, something primal. One moment, the siege ships were ready to fire. The next, they were crumpling inward, as if an invisible hand had seized them. The energy they had gathered folded back onto them, collapsing their hulls like paper. A heartbeat later, 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships were reduced to glowing singularities, sinking into their own gravity wells. It was over in 10 seconds. Silence fell across the Imperator Prime. "You do not belong here," a voice echoed, seemingly from the very fabric of the ship. Valzer clenched his fists. "They're toying with us." Elias Voss's face returned to the screen, calm as ever. "This is your final warning." His voice carried no gloating, no malice, just absolute certainty. "Leave now," he continued, "or what comes next will not be war." Valzer snarled, "And what will it be?" Elias's expression did not change. "Extinction." The transmission ended. Valzer turned to his officers. No one moved. He had led the greatest fleet in history to Earth. He had expected to conquer it. Instead, he had brought his people to the edge of oblivion, and he had no idea how to escape. The Imperator Prime trembled, not from enemy fire, nor from a reactor failure, but from the silent, consuming fear gripping its crew. The Eternal Armada, the pride of the Zoran Empire, had been torn apart in minutes. High Admiral Valzer stood rigid, his fingers tightening around the command console. He had fought in 100 wars, crushed countless civilizations, but never had he faced an enemy that fought like this. "Status," he demanded, his voice measured, controlled. The sensor officer hesitated. "Admiral, 90% of the fleet is gone." Valzer's stomach twisted, but he refused to falter. "How many survivors?" "A few dozen ships, scattered, uncoordinated. No cohesion. No command structure." The Empire's greatest fleet was now a collection of broken, leaderless fragments. Yet, the humans had not fired another shot. A final choice. A new transmission appeared on the main screen. Commander Elias Voss. He sat in his command chair aboard his flagship, expression unreadable, posture relaxed, a stark contrast to the chaos consuming the Imperator Prime. "Admiral Valzer," Elias began, his voice calm. "Your fleet is no longer a threat. Your weapons are useless. Your empire has no idea what has happened here, and you will never make it back to warn them." Valzer clenched his jaw. "You assume we surrender?" Elias tilted his head slightly. "No. I assume you understand." The words landed heavier than any weapon strike. Valzer exhaled sharply. "And if we refuse?" The human gaze did not waver. "Then we finish this." The Admiral's claws dug into the console. "You would exterminate us?" Elias leaned forward, his voice a whisper of finality. "No, Admiral. You brought annihilation upon yourselves. We simply choose whether to let it happen now, or later." The bridge fell into silence. The meaning was clear. This was not just about this battle. It was about what the humans were capable of, what they had chosen not to do. Valzer inhaled deeply, steadying himself. He turned to his crew, looking at the officers who had followed him across the stars. Some refused to meet his gaze. Others stared at him, waiting for his decision. He could fight. He could die here, gasping for a victory that no longer existed. Or he could do something no Zoran admiral had ever done before. Retreat. His claws tapped the console. Open a transmission to all remaining ships. The officer hesitated. "Sir, do it." A moment later, his voice carried across the broken fleet. "This is High Admiral Valzer," he said, each word an iron weight in his chest. "Cease all combat operations. We are leaving." Murmurs filled the bridge, but no one objected. There was no argument left to make. P sequence. Valzer exhaled. "Prepare for withdrawal." The order felt like a blade to his pride. But his fleet had no future here. "Admiral," the helm officer interrupted, "our warp drives are still non-functional." The bridge tensed. They were trapped. Elias Voss spoke again. "You will leave when we allow it." Valzer turned back to the screen. "And when will that be?" Elias's expression remained unreadable. When you understand what you've done. A low hum filled the bridge. The ship's external cameras flickered, displaying a view of Earth. But something had changed. Above the planet, a structure unfolded. At first, it appeared as a thin, golden filament stretching through the void, growing, expanding. Then it multiplied, spreading in a web-like pattern until it formed something colossal. A Dyson construct. The Empire had legends about such things. Civilizations that could harness the power of stars, manipulate gravity, bend the fundamental laws of the universe itself. This was not just a planetary civilization. Humanity had ascended into something else entirely, something the Empire was never meant to provoke. Valzer swallowed hard. This is why you warned us. Elias nodded once. Yes. The Zoran had assumed Earth was just another world to conquer. They had never considered that humanity had outgrown such conflicts long ago. We were never your enemy, Admiral, Elias said, but you made us one. A new signal appeared on the Imperator Prime's navigation systems. The warp drives re-engaged. The message was clear. You're letting us go. Valzer muttered. Elias nodded. Your empire will not know what happened here. You will return, but you will have no evidence of this battle. No proof. No wreckage. No bodies. Just fear. Valzer's fists tightened. They would call him a liar, a coward, a traitor. But he had no choice. He turned to his crew. Initiate Jum. The Imperator Prime and the remaining Zoran warships turned in unison, their drives igniting as reality itself bent around them. They fled, avoiding the final warning as the last Zoran vessel disappeared into the void. Elias Voss leaned back in his chair, observing the now empty battlefield, no debris, no wreckage, as if the Eternal Armada had never even existed. Captain Ikorin, his second in command, approached. Do you think they'll listen? She asked. Elias exhaled deeply. No, but they'll remember. He turned to the crew. Send a message across all channels. Iko nodded and began inputting the command. Elias gazed out at the dark expanse of space. Stay far from Earth. Stay away, he ordered. The signal spread, reaching across the galaxy, spreading fear and uncertainty among those who heard it. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would listen. The Imperator Prime dropped out of warp, entering the heart of Zoran Prime, the jewel of the Galactic Empire. Towering spires of gold and black metal reached toward the heavens, their brilliance echoing the pulse of conquest in the neon-lit sky. But inside the warship, the air was thick with the weight of failure. High Admiral There stood at the command console, his hands clasped behind his back. The remnants of the once mighty Eternal Armada, now reduced to a handful of damaged warships limping into orbit, arrived in disgrace. The homeworld, expecting a triumphant return, instead witnessed the downfall of their most powerful fleet. There exhaled slowly. He had braced for this moment, but no amount of preparation could alleviate the burden of what was coming next. Prepare for direct transmission with the Imperial Council, he ordered. The officers moved without speaking, their eyes filled with judgment and fear, expecting answers he did not have. The screen before him blinked to life, revealing the Imperial Council. The council was composed of the highest-ranking nobles and warlords of the Empire, seated on their golden thrones, their eyes burning with impatience. The Imperial Sovereign, draped in a ceremonial war robe, leaned forward. Admiral There, his voice was cold. Explain. The other council members remained silent, their gazes sharp and accusing. There straightened. The invasion of Earth failed. Whispers rippled through the chamber. A few scoffed, while others narrowed their eyes in disbelief. The Sovereign's face remained impassive. The Eternal Armada, our greatest military force, was defeated by a single planet, one of the councilors sneered. There met his gaze. Believe what you want. I speak only the truth. The Sovereign raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Then tell us how. There inhaled deeply. The humans are not what we assumed. They do not fight as we do. They do not think as we do. They have surpassed war in the way we understand it. Another counselor scoffed. They are one planet. We control thousands. How could they possibly have such power? Their claws flexed against the console. Because they are more than just one planet, he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. They warned us. We didn't listen. They could have erased us entirely. Instead, they allowed us to leave. Not out of mercy, but out of indifference. A chilling silence filled the room. The sovereign's gaze grew sharp. And what do they want? Their exhaled slowly. Nothing. They don't want war. They don't want conquest. They want to be left alone. For the first time, the council members did not laugh. They understood. The Empire had stumbled upon something it was never meant to challenge, and had barely survived a war that was never meant to be. An elder statesman with centuries of war experience leaned forward, his voice soft but measured. You say they let you go. That means they do not intend to strike back? They nodded. Correct. But they sent a message. The elder's expression darkened. What message? Their voice was hollow. Stay far from Earth. Stay away. Silence. No anger. No dismissal. Just understanding. Finally, the sovereign spoke again. And what is your recommendation, Admiral There? There hesitated for only a moment before answering with a deep breath. We must never return. The sovereign studied him for a long moment before nodding. Then that is what we shall do. The Empire had survived, not through strength, but through obedience. The humans had given them a chance to walk away. And for the first time in its history, the Zoran Empire would listen. Far below, on the quiet blue world that had shattered the ambitions of an entire empire, Commander Elias Voss stood in the observation deck of Black Horizon Command, staring into the void. Captain Ikoren joined him, stopping at his side. They're gone, Elias said softly. For now, she replied, frowning. Do you think they'll return? Elias exhaled. Not them. Iko glanced at him, puzzled. Then who? He met her gaze, a small, knowing smile on his lips. The others who are listening. She followed his gaze to the stars, understanding dawning upon her. The message had been sent, and the galaxy was listening.